The low, steady buzz against my thigh pulled me out of sleep. Groggy and disoriented, I blinked into the darkness, my eyes catching the red digits on the clock. 3:17 a.m. Beside me, Molly, my wife for the past 10 years, was curled up under the blankets, breathing softly as if lost in deep sleep. Instinctively, I reached under the covers for my phone, but the smooth, familiar shape I pulled out wasn't mine. It was hers. She must have rolled over onto it. I was about to set it back on the nightstand when the illuminated screen caught my eye. A single message glowed in the dimness. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby. Miss you so much, Soko." My chest tightened. The words didn't belong to her mother, her sister, or any of her friends. The tone, intimate, tender, almost possessive, was the kind you send to a lover, not a casual acquaintance. My pulse quickened, my breath turning shallow. The world felt unervingly still, like the moment before glass shatters. The first wave of instinct was to shake her awake, demand an explanation, tear the truth out of her before she had a chance to weave any lies. But I didn't. Instead, something cold and calculated began to settle over me, smothering the initial panic. If this was what I thought it was, I needed more than just a confrontation. I needed certainty. Without allowing myself to think twice, I typed out a reply. "Tomorrow? What time should I expect you?" My thumb hovered for a fraction of a second before sending it. I slipped the phone back onto the nightstand, forcing my body to sink into the mattress, feigning the posture of sleep while my heart pounded hard enough to make my ribs ache. It didn't take long. Within seconds, the device vibrated again. I felt Molly shift next to me, her hand brushing mine as she fumbled for the phone. The soft glow lit her face, revealing the flicker of confusion in her half-lidded eyes. Then she froze. Her pupils widened, her lips parted slightly, and the phone slipped from her hands, landing on the hardwood with a sharp clack. She sat bolt upright, her gaze darting toward me. "Pooh. Aye. The words stumbled out of her like she'd forgotten how to form sentences. I pushed myself up slowly, rubbing my eyes, masking the clarity in my head with a performance of grogginess. "What's wrong?" I mumbled. "Nothing," she answered too quickly, her voice thin and tight. "Just a bad dream." Without another glance in my direction, she snatched the phone from the floor and hurried to the bathroom, slamming the lock shut behind her. That sound, the metallic click, landed like a nail in the coffin of any lingering hope I had left. Every unease I'd pushed aside for months came roaring back in a cruel chorus. The sudden late nights, the vague explanations, the soft laughter over hushed phone calls she'd step outside to take. It was all real. Molly was cheating. I lay there, staring into the darkness, my mind racing but my body perfectly still. The weight of 10 years of marriage pressed down on me. The house we'd built together, the promises we'd made, the future we'd planned. All of it contaminated, dismantled in the quiet hours of the night by her betrayal. When she finally emerged, her skin was pale, her eyes rimmed red. She didn't dare meet mine. She lingered near the doorway, gripping the phone like a lifeline. "We need to talk," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I think we do," I replied, each word deliberately calm, the edge in my tone sharp enough to cut. "Who is he?" Color drained from her cheeks. Her lips opened but no sound came out, just the hollow silence between us, thick with unspoken truths and rotting trust. Finally, she exhaled shakily and whispered, "David." David, the new project manager, the one with the easy charm and practiced smile, who never seemed to stand too far from her at company events, his presence a little too consistent to be coincidence. Suddenly, all those fragments of unease aligned into something painfully clear. Over the next hour, piece by piece, she let the story spill. Stolen glances across office hallways, casual texts that became nightly conversations, dinners that were dressed up as work meetings, and moments of closeness she swore didn't mean anything at first. Each detail was a blade, and she handed them to me willingly. By the time she was done, I was bleeding on the inside, my vision of us shattered beyond repair. The business trips, the secret weekend escapes, every revelation felt like another twist of the knife in my chest. She wept, pleaded for me to believe her, insisted it had meant nothing, but her words slid right past me. That kind of damage couldn't be undone with tears. I didn't yell, didn't smash anything. The fury boiling in me was too sharp, too controlled for that. I just told her to pack her things and go. No speeches, no second chances. She left before the sun was up, like a shadow slipping away from the scene of its crime. The house fell into a suffocating silence, each empty room echoing the hollow place inside me. On the outside, I seemed calm. Inside, something darker was already taking shape, a plan. I wasn't going to scream at the universe and let them walk away free. They would pay. My first move was quiet. I reached out to our company's HR department under a false name, reporting David's inappropriate involvement with a married coworker. Company policy left no room for interpretation. Relationships between employees, especially from different departments, were grounds for immediate action. Then I aimed directly at the heart. David had his own wife, Emily, a stay-at-home mother who had no idea her husband was sneaking around. I tracked her down online, sent her an anonymous message with screenshots of the texts Molly and David had exchanged. I didn't need to add commentary. The messages spoke for themselves. The consequences came fast. Within a week, David was fired. Emily, devastated and furious, threw him out of their home. Their picture-perfect facade collapsed overnight, reduced to the truth: lies, betrayal, and wreckage. But watching their life fall apart from a distance wasn't enough for me. I wanted to stand in front of him, to see the fear in his eyes when he realized there was nowhere left to hide. I found him one night at a dimly lit bar, alone, hunched over a half-empty glass. My pulse was steady but heavy as I walked up. "David," I said, my tone low, edged with steel. His head snapped up. His face drained of color, his hand shaking slightly as he reached for his drink. He began. "Enjoying your drink?" I asked, my words dripping with venom. He didn't answer, just stared at me like a man cornered. "I used to think you were a decent guy," I said, leaning in closer, my voice ablade. "Guess I was wrong." "I'm sorry," he muttered, his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder. "Sorry." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Sorry doesn't even scratch the surface, David. You tore apart my marriage. You wrecked my life." My voice rose, and I could feel the eyes of nearby patrons turning toward us. "You stole something that was never yours," I said, my tone sharp enough to cut. "And now, you've got nothing." I straightened, turned my back, and left him sitting there, drowning in shame. The satisfaction was like a shot of something strong, warm, dizzying, dangerous. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had wrestled back some control. The months that followed were far from easy. The betrayal still sat in me like a stone, heavy and constant. Rebuilding wasn't glamorous, it was slow, exhausting work. I started therapy. I poured myself into my job. I began meeting up with old friends I hadn't seen in years. Piece by piece, I was stitching together a life that didn't revolve around her. Then one afternoon, months after the dust had settled, I got a message from Molly. She said she was sorry again, told me she had lost everything: her marriage, her job, her home, and was trying to start over. She sounded broken. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling the old anger stir inside me. But underneath it, there was something else, a quiet sadness. She had destroyed so much, and now she was standing in the ruins of her own making. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. I deleted the message, and with it, whatever thread of connection still existed between us. That chapter was over. The scars would stay, reminders of betrayal, of nights spent choking on rage, but they were also proof that I had survived, that I had walked through the wreckage and come out the other side harder, sharper, and unshakable. And as I looked forward, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: I would never be anyone's victim again.